her being really aggressive with the judge this time, or just kind of sitting back and going, well, what's the point? Everybody's against me, and
Yeah.
you're against me. There's no way I can win. I'll just wait for a retry.
Hello, welcome to A Life Without Parole. I'm Amy, and today we're going to be talking everything Lori Vallow Daybell. And we have a lot of thoughts. I have two guests with me today, and I've been trying to get them on the channel for a long time. Some of you may recognize this one. This is my sister, Christy. She's done one video with me in the past, and we discussed Lori Vallow. We're all sisters. I don't know if you can tell, but we are sisters. We all grew up in Idaho, southeastern Idaho, and we have a particular, interest in this story since that's where Lori chose to do a lot of her crimes. And so we wanted to do a video and kind of talk about a little bit about overall everything that's happening before her trial starts, but also just a little bit from the perspective of people who live in the state. Now, I haven't lived in Idaho since I graduated from high school. So right now I'm visiting my sister in Idaho, and my other sister's not in Idaho. She lives in North Dakota. So we are Zoom calling in. We do a lot of Zoom calls, the three of us. We have one more sister, but have a panel today. And we're going to just talk about all the things that have been happening, our ideas. And I actually have really been thinking something different. And those of you who follow my channel will be shocked when you find out how my idea has changed significantly. You're going to be shocked. All of you. I'm shocked.
We haven't rehearsed this, so I don't know what you're thinking.
No idea what I'm talking about. What I want you to do, Christy, just give us a synopsis of when did you start following the Lori Vallow case? And then Pollyanna, that's my sister Pollyanna. And yes, she is a Pollyanna, if just so in case you were wondering. Tell us when you started watching it and why is this case different than other cases to you?
I started watching this when I found out that the kids were from Idaho because it just piqued my interest because I'm from Idaho. So I've watched it really from the beginning.
I can remember exactly where I was. I was at work and I was living in Omaha, Nebraska, and I got a text from our brother. Okay, there's a bunch of us. Let's just say there's 9 kids and we all grew up on a farm in Idaho. But I got a text from one of my brothers and he said, did you see this post? There's these missing kids. And he sent it to me, and it was interesting because he doesn't follow true crime, let's just say. And he's not one. It was Jared. I wouldn't have guessed that he would be the one to send me that. So I started looking into it, and I could tell immediately this was a different story. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But go ahead, Pollyanna, why don't you tell us where you were, how you started paying attention to this case?
I was the same thing as Christy, that I was when I saw the kids were missing, and then when they said that they were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I was just baffled. I couldn't believe that they would be so crazy. All the craziness that would be going on, because I kept thinking there's got to be a logical explanation about where these kids are. But then I found out that they were part of that fringe group, and I was like, oh dear, now I'm getting,
Fringies.
yeah. And so,
yeah, I remember. So in Nebraska, there's a lot of missile silos all over in Nebraska.
right.
Some of them go out of commission, and after they go out of commission, people can buy them. They're no longer government owned, or like private citizens can buy them. And I personally know a few people that have bought missile silos, and then they become like these safe bunkers. Like remember back in 2000 when we thought the world was going to come to an end because of Y2K and all that?
Yeah.
There was a whole group of people that went to this bunker just in case of Y2K.
Yeah.
And they aren't crazy. I'm not at all saying they're like
But the hype was so big.
there's hype, and there's people out there like the preppers that are just, and I personally thought, oh, they must be preppers of some sort, and there's some sort of a dispute with an ex or something, and they're just hiding the guns. I mean, didn't that seem like that would be,
Yes, exactly what I thought at first. Yeah.
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 Not to mention the fact there were some polygamous groups about the same time that were abducting kids and then they would be missing. And that's still an ongoing theme. So I thought, well, maybe they're tied in with that. You know, they say that because remember when Sister Wives first came out and they said they were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And then that became like, no, they're offshoots, they're break off. But I was wondering, okay, so are these break-offs or are they actually members? Like, it was intriguing, I would say. Yeah. So anyway, to make a long story short, the three of us started really following it. What was amazing to me was everyone at my office in Omaha, everyone there was also following it. And I realized this is more than just an Idahoan interest to me. It's not only just interesting to a person who's from Idaho, but also for the world.
A worldwide thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had the opposite, that there was nobody at work that was following it, but they would always ask me, what's the latest? They wanted me to tell them, but they didn't want to get into it on the, watching videos or YouTubes and stuff. But so I talked about it every day, had to give an update.
I love that. We actually had a few appointments that were like, oh no, that appointment is, office work. That's not going to work at that time because we're going to have a ruling on something on the Lori Vallow.
That's awesome.
That's a little much. Maybe that's too much information. Anyway, okay, so here's one of the things that's been my thing from day one when Lori actually went to jail before Chad was even arrested, and things started leaking out in Arizona. And so there were documents, and you could watch all the police interviews from Arizona from Charles Vallow's shooting. And I watched every single minute of every single one of them. And the one thing that kept coming up sometime in that vicinity, coming up in my brain was, what about the niece, Melanie? Why is she not being charged? Because she obviously knows about a lot of this, and especially about Brandon Boudreaux. Why is Lori being charged and not Melanie? Have you ever thought that?
Yeah.
I just wonder if they just don't have enough for sure, for a conviction for her.
Why would
Or
they?
if she was a little naive and not as aware as we think she might have been, I don't know. Because I think she's easily manipulated.
How would they'll target her husband without her knowledge, and why would she be okay with that? She knew. I feel like she knew all about it. So
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if she was in the Jeep, but that's just me.
I have a whole video just about that. In fact, I'll put it right up here, the link. But there had to be another driver. There was a driver because Brandon flat out said, I saw the muzzle of the gun from the back shoot, and then
immediately
they drove away. They immediately drove away. So there's somebody who was in that car or in that Jeep. Who is it? If it's not Melanie.
And I don't know how whoever the driver was wouldn't know that he was trying to shoot at him. So if it was Melanie, she was aware that he was going to get shot at. If she knew that he was going to actually try to kill him, that's a different story. Maybe she thought they're just going to scare him. But why would you think that? He'd already killed somebody. So I don't know.
I think that the interview with the police that they did with Melanie initially was terrible. She had a child with her, and they never considered her a suspect at that time. And I get it. She's a cutie patootie. She's got sweet personality, which kind of Lori does. We know better now, but
well, she can put it on.
Oh,
put on the charm.
do we want to talk about the voices of Lori?
Oh my goodness.
I'm like, I figured this out. I've categorized it. You got number one, Farrah Fawcett voice. Now, those people who are too young to know who Farrah Fawcett was, remember when she first came on the Charlie's Angels, and she'd be like,
Very soft voice.
yeah, and flirty
Her
and
sexy voice.
soft and
Oh, well, I think it's very good. It's just no, it is.
But
It's
anything
good.
can be better.
Yeah, I think it's that way. When you go home and maybe you watch the show, you think, gee, I could have been a little better. Maybe something could have been a little better. And that's good because it shows that you care and you want it to be better, and maybe it will be.
So Lori has her Farrah Fawcett voice. Then
Right.
when she gets mad, she turns into a tigress, like
Right.
like
Right.
aggressive. And she can go from Farrah Fawcett to tiger, just like
Yeah.
that. And I feel like Melanie can do that too. Yeah.
Yes.
But here's the shocking part. No, I think I'm going to wait on it for a minute. Oh, wait. Hold on. Hold my thought. I got something that's going
Okay.
to shock everyone. Okay. So let's keep going. What do you think about how things have gone so far
Through the trial?
through the trial? Let's even just talk about Friday when they couldn't finish with jury selection because why?
Lori's sick.
Lori's
Yeah, or so she says.
so
So,
she
right.
says,
I think she really likes to manipulate, and when she doesn't feel like she's in control, she has to do whatever she can to be in control. I feel like that was even in the trial again with the kids. I don't believe for a minute that she didn't want to go see the crime or the autopsy pictures. I believe that was a manipulation, that she was like, I'm not going in there.
I was in the courtroom that day.
Yes, I know.
That's the day I was then.
Yeah.
That's the day I was at the courthouse. And I remember specifically that the majority of the people in the courtroom that day were like trying to tweet out. You know, they're on their computers, they're looking down, they're listening to what's being said, and because it wasn't live stream, remember?
Right.
See what's happening. So I'm watching her the close family of Lori or Charles or whatever, they didn't stay in there during that autopsy part because it's too awful.
Yeah.
It's too awful. Now remember, they turned the computers around so that the people who were in the courtroom couldn't see what the jurors were seeing and what Lori and her counsel, what they were seeing. But so there were only a couple of us that weren't either tweeting or whatever. Anyway, I remember I just kept my eyes on Lori the whole time. And the spot where I was sitting, it was the only time that you could actually look at her face, because other than when they turned those computers around and they sat on the other side, usually she was kind of blocked by the way the court was set up. She was blocked by either attorneys or computer screens or whatever. And you couldn't see her facial expressions very often. And they had it so the computer was like down, so I could see over the computer to see her face. And she could see what was happening on the autopsy. And because it was so sensitive, there were a lot of objections and sidebars throughout.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I noticed was the minute she had her hair over her face and looking so distraught, and she did the whole tantrum where she didn't want to even come in, and they forced her to come in, and oh, it was the most dramatic day. But when the attorneys would go up for a sidebar, she'd still be sitting at the table, and sometimes they would have the jurors go out because it would go long. So the jurors would go out and I would watch her, and she had this whole like countenance of, oh, it's just awful. I can't believe this. As soon as they go out, she clicked right out of it. When no attorneys were looking at her, the judge wasn't looking at her, the jurors weren't looking at her, she clicked right out. And she would sit there and stare at those pictures on the screen. Oh. I mean, how can anyone, even if you believe everything that she's saying, that she's this or she's that, how could you look at that? And then as soon as everyone would turn around and start, and then she got that countenance again, she could change it on a dime. So because of that, I don't trust it. I think there's a lot of acting and faking and
definitely
manipulating going on.
Well, and the fact that she was suddenly sick eliminated quite a few jurors that couldn't couldn't come back in on Monday, so they're eliminated a bunch of them.
They're gone. And you think about it, what happened that morning? She tried to get the judge thrown out and she got that no. Then she had the argument with the judge that went on and on and on and on. And she just kept on, like, she's gaslighting, trying to get her way. And she's so used to people, most people that gaslight, they're able to get their way. You just get worn out. And you just kind of,
Right.
but no, not the judge. She didn't get her way. It was two bad things happened to her that day. And then all of a sudden she's sick. And I know that during the Charles Vallow trial, they did some text messages between Lori and Melanie. And part of their manipulation was, okay, well, we want to do this and this tomorrow. You better pretend like you're sick. And then
Right.
such and such.
To Melanie.
Yeah, and that's a manipulation tool that Lori and Melanie used. That day in court, she wasn't controlling anything. And I think even she knew she was getting cooked that day, because usually she can kind of like, her perception is different than reality. When she talks about her brother, like, we're talking about chicken enchiladas.
He's like, I don't remember those.
No, he was never going to laugh about that. But she still doesn't recognize, oh no, if I would have just said this one line, then he would have laughed, because we always laugh at that.
They're all on to you.
No. So I know she's delusional that way. But I think that she recognized that everything's going bad. I got to reset. I'll pretend like I'm sick.
Cases you don't have an aggravation phase either, right? Only in being the one statute.
Actually, you have.
What are you getting out of the aggravation phase? I don't understand.
First of all, well, the jury in the initial phase doesn't determine whether or not it's a dangerous.
That normally put together with the guilt phase, like they would have that on the back page where it says the aggravators and the guilt.
No.
So are we going to have a whole nother aggravator phase in this case?
If the jury finds you guilty of the charge and the state wants to proceed with aggravators, yes.
And so we do not have to have a hearing to, okay.
It was on my desk.
Your Honor, I would just like it to be on the record clear that the Rule 13.5 that I'm talking about is about non-capital cases.
Is that what you're talking about?
Correct.
It doesn't say you get a probable cause hearing regarding the aggravators.
Well, I'm challenging the state's allegation of aggravators by asking for
Everything's going bad. I got to reset. I'll pretend like I'm sick. And then when they say, we might have to quarantine you. Well, wait a minute. Isn't she 24 out of 25, 23 out of 24 hours a day?
Yeah.
He's already quarantined.
Yeah, I love that.
No.
And if they need to quarantine her, usually they would have tested her for something and they'd know for a fact if she's sick or not.
Well, and there are these, bugs going around, and I'm just coming off getting sick.
Right.
The thing of it is that you can hear it in their voice. Her voice sounded pretty good to me. I mean, who might have sick? I mean, maybe she's got 104 fever and strep throat, and we don't know. But
it just seems like a manipulation. And talking about the judge, I forget which interview it was that they said that the judge was really fair. She's like, "Oh, you think so?" And I was like, "Oh, he is beyond fair. He is beyond kind to you, and he's trying so hard to be nice." And the eye rolls. And that was the thing, is I was like, "Oh, she's projecting," because even just seeing the back of her head, you could see how she's just like, for everything that anybody, she's so expressive. And so it's kind of funny, which I know that she has the right to be expressive and he doesn't because of the position. But it's just funny when she's saying, because he's just so contained for all of the drama and crap that he's have to deal with.
Yeah.
And the poor prosecutor, I'm like, she's just got to go home every night exhausted from dealing with her.
how could you not?
Yeah.
Well, and I wonder about this. Case. I bet you it goes pretty fast because the evidence is pretty cut and dry. I can't imagine that it will take weeks and weeks. I don't know.
Well, and they've kind of practiced with the jury, with the other one, to notice, they can see when the jury's kind of zoning out, or, so they can say, okay, well, let's just eliminate that part. It didn't really benefit the outcome that much, I don't think, or, so I think there'll be some things that can definitely streamline to make it to go quick.
Anyway, to make a long story short, the three of us have really been following this case from day one, and we talk about it together a lot. So a lot of my videos that you see that I put out about Lori, which I don't even know how many I have, it's a lot, but that I put out, it's not just my brain coming up with it, it's these two as well, like, what about this, what about that? And even our brother, who's an attorney, will go, what? He doesn't follow it all, but he'll just go, like, he's the one who said, I don't know about that juror, like, saying, oh, last night when I was driving home, 3 life sentences.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like he knew something, but I think that there's the possibility that he did, and he still seemed to be able to be fair and impartial. I don't know.
He was the one holding out.
Holding out.
Yeah. And I think that he might have misspoke, because if you listen to him, there were several times that he kind of stumbled over his words, and I do that often enough that I have a lot of compassion for other people, that I just, like, it's not coming out of my brain the way, by the time it gets to my mouth, it's all messed up.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I mean, they had no idea they were going to be bombarded like that.
Right.
But I think it's interesting when he went on Hidden True Crime, then weeks later, and she, Lauren, who I've met, asked him about it, and he just said, I can't remember. I don't know how to answer. I mean, he basically still.
Right. And I don't think that seems really genuine, but I was thinking that he might have been, what I was thinking was that he was starting to say, on my drive home, I was thinking, what if she gets a life sentence? And then he added in, and then I hear she already is serving 3 sentences. And I think he jumbled. That was my interpretation.
Yeah. And I remember one of the guys that was standing right there is like, do you mean to say, he asked him a question. I was like, man, that guy, he had a good question. And then I found out he's like some major reporter. It wasn't just some, I don't know.
It was more of a,
it wasn't some
big time media guy.
Yeah, it was a big time media guy. He was with Current Affairs or something like that. So, but I thought he had a great question, and he did immediately answer, But anyway, does that mean mistrial? I think no. I mean, there was so much evidence, and like you say, that wasn't the reason why he chose to convict.
Yeah, he still went in. He said he went in that morning still thinking, I don't know.
That's the one that wasn't gonna.
So even if he did have that knowledge, he was
got to use it, and of course,
right.
Yeah. So that's something. Okay, I wanted to talk about. I think it's interesting that I still kind of focus in on Melanie's, the niece, because I'm like, where are the charges for her? I always thought it was weird that Melanie was getting off scot-free. Like, she obviously knew things. I still do the whole, I think the most telling thing was her post after they found the kids. And she's like, well, if Tylee saw this, she'd do the biggest eye roll because she hates drama. Drama?
She was chopped into bits and burned,
and buried. Yeah, that's just too dramatic for me. I just roll my eyes that people are talking about this. So I just don't know. But anyway, I did watch a video that was recently put out from Lori's cousin, Megan. I don't really watch a lot of them because I try to just stick with the court documents. But I did watch this one because she was actually reading some court documents. And she was talking about what Lori's parents were like, specifically Lori's father, and actually Melanie's mother.
Right. Oh my goodness.
You read about Melanie's mother, you realize Stacy, poor Melanie didn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
If that's your mother, and this whole time I've wondered about why was the family in Hawaii when Stacy died? Do they not care? But she was dying for years and years. because she
Yeah.
was not eating,
refusing to,
refusing to eat.
she was going against medical advice.
Yeah. And so once you realize all that and you realize what kind of trauma Melanie was raised in, then this is the part that I'm just going to shock myself even by saying, I find compassion in my heart for Melanie for the first time. I've
Oh, for Melanie. Yes, I definitely do too.
I've never before, I've constantly been like, where is her day in court? Why is she not being accountable? And she was raised from a child
I'm
with
6 years old.
crazies
Yeah.
all around her. And
Yeah.
Lori's parents, a little on the, well,
Dishonest side.
Well, and I hadn't realized until listening to that how controlling her father, Lori's father, was, and how the rules don't apply
rules don't apply to us.
to us. But family loyalty above all else. It doesn't matter. As long as you're family loyal, it doesn't matter what else you do. Which is surprising that Lori could kill her children when she's had that drilled into her. But
Yeah, but remember, she's okay.
she was saving them.
This is something I wanted to talk about. This is something that's just like going through my head in the middle of the night. Let's talk about what Lori's claims are. Why she is okay with doing what she did, because she's what?
Nephi, like Nephi.
Like Nephi. She's a goddess. And
Although it's so funny how quickly she is trying to distance herself from that statement, but
kind of go back. She goes back and forth when it suits her.
right.
But I keep on thinking about her claim that she's a translated being that she used to tell Melanie the friend. Melanie
Right.
testified that she was translated. She didn't need to eat or sleep. No eating, no sleeping, because she's translated. And I find it ironic that she's like having her post Charles interview and she's saying, I slept in this morning because I just haven't been able to sleep.
Right.
I'm like, wait, what do you mean you slept? You slept? How does that work? And then when she brings up her chicken enchiladas, what? You need to do food? Because, who needs to eat? Or she's complained about different jails based on what it is. And I'm like, why does that matter? You're translated. You don't need
Right.
none of these things are adding up.
Well, and I think it's also interesting that she has this food thing with the situation with her sister, thinking that she didn't need to eat either, basically.
Her sister was 75 pounds.
75 pounds. And food was dangerous. And so Melanie wasn't able to have food. And I mean, when you read all the documentation that Melanie's father put in order to get custody taken away from her mom, that's when you realize, whoa. And
Well, she was so young when her brain was being formed and having all that, haven't been abused.
yeah, and guess who tried to protect Stacy from, even though Stacy was crazy,
Lori's dad.
Lori's dad and mom.
Yeah. And mom, both of them,
They did
right.
the same thing for Lori. So how can Melanie grow up and trust anyone?
Right.
Family. You start to go, is it the family that's safe or is it society? And she, at that point, apparently chose family. And what would any of us do?
Right.
I mean, she's an only child,
She was taking care of her mother when she was 6.
6 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm changing my tune on Melanie's. I no longer want to see her in prison. So that's something, like, I get to choose it. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. I mean, I think she's guilty of conspiring, but
Mentally,
because she was so easily manipulated because of her childhood.
Well, it makes you wonder about Ian, her husband, who she, met, and 9 days later they married because Lori and Chad told him to, or whatever. I'm surprised they're still together, and he seems like he's in for the long haul with her, but he's got to know more. I mean, he was recording her at first, and it's a whole thing. It's a whole,
It would be interesting to know more about him, but it sounds like a nice guy that is just taking care of her because he.
yeah. And they both officially, like, They're no longer in religion of any kind. I think they're just, how would you not go to that? Like, you'd have to go, I can't trust any religion because
Right,
look what happened when I tried to dive in.
right.
You,
Sad.
I
Yeah.
don't know. So what do you think's going to happen with this? Oh, should we show what we have on our hands?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Well,
There it is.
go to Mexico, and the three of us got ourselves malachite bracelets.
Yeah, yeah.
Comment below if you know what malachite has to do with anything with this trial, and why would we be wearing malachite bracelets, or why would we be eating green chili chicken enchiladas tonight? I don't know about the rest of you, but for some reason that was a crazy thing in the court case, but that just sounds delicious.
It does.
It does. Colby talked about the recipe, and so did Megan, I believe. And the recipe sounds disgusting, but if you made it on your own,
I
it's-
have my own recipe. We're gonna make it tonight. Yeah.
oh, you are.
Yes, we are.
Love it.
Anyway, yeah, we're making it tonight. But I just found a recipe on Pinterest or something that looked delicious, and it had 5 stars. So
Perfect. There we go.
here we go. Pollyanna, come over for green chili.
I'll be right over. It's only a 14-hour drive, I think. No, 10.
No big deal.
Yeah, I think you're 14.
Yeah.
Anything else we should bring up? Oh, there's one thing that I wanted to announce, and that is I do have a really good friend who's going to be in the court. I'm not going to be able to make it to Arizona, but I have a friend who's going to be in court all week, and we're going to be doing some lives afterwards, because for me and the times that I've gone to court, I really like to see what you see behind the cameras, so to speak. You know,
Right.
you can see that the cameras show, but I like to talk about what the cameras don't show. And so that's what I'll be doing. So make sure, if you haven't already, to like and subscribe and ring the bell to all, so you can be notified when we put up our live videos, which for me is a bit of a panic attack because I don't usually do lives, but I'm gonna.
Well, and I just can say that I enjoyed watching, knowing about texting and all the things. Okay, I'm sitting outside the courthouse. Your daughter's putting my hair in braids because apparently I'm staying the night. I wasn't planning on this.
Oh yes, we tell that
Oh
story.
yeah. Yeah. I made you go.
I
I made you stay.
came from Nebraska to be in Idaho when Lori was getting
Sentence.
sentenced.
Yeah.
I really wanted to be there. So I go over to the courthouse with my sister, and my plan was to stay at her house. And she was about an hour and a half from where the courthouse was.
Was it St. Anthony?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was the plan. We decided to go and see Chad's house, go see.
Just all the sights. And
I was just going to get there early in the morning. So we got there. Well, there was already this long line for people to try to get into the courthouse. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get in. And Christy says, you should just stay and I'll go home and bring back some stuff. And basically people were camping out. And I'm like, no, I didn't even bring my hair and makeup. I'm not ready to be on camera because I was going to do some lives the next morning. And I didn't want to, I've been driving all day. So she said, no, I'll go get you some stuff. And then you just stay. So I stayed and I made friends. And I have lifelong friends that I met that also stayed. We stayed up all night. Anyway, it sounds crazy, but it was crazy. My sister's daughter, she's a hairdresser and she lives not as far from there. And so she said, well, I'll come and I'll get you all ready. So she came over, brought me a lunch pail with food because there's nothing to eat. And she brought me all these snacks and she said, all you need to do is we'll braid your hair into braids and you can just have it through the night. And then when you wake up, you can just have these lovely Lori Vallow curls.
Lori waves.
And it turned out like it's a good thing she did that, because the next morning I was on 4 different lives on live news.
Were you on East Idaho News?
I had an interview with them, but I mean like national.
Right.
I don't even know who. I mean, people. Would you come in? I don't know.
and you're so shy that they.
So of course, yeah.
Yeah.
that was that. So yeah, my niece, she saved my bacon and brought me some bacon. No.
Oh, and she loved it. She
Yeah.
loved it.
So
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of crazy because it's a weird dichotomy, really, to be involved or interested in this case and then be kind of lighthearted. And I think that it almost has to be that way because it's so hard. The topic itself is
Right.
hard and so unbelievable that you almost go into this mode of self-protection in a way.
Right.
And that was the first time that I really met a lot of the family members and a lot of people who had been closely tied to Chad and Lori's, cult, basically. And
Mhm.
to really see some of the inside things, it really, I don't know, it brought it to home to reality of what really happened.
And you met Larry and Kay
Met Larry and
at the funeral. Was that when you met them at
I met
the
I met him
memorial?
initially at her sentencing, and then again at the funeral. We met
Adam.
Uncle Rex and Adam, and we've met Larry. We've met a lot. We between all the different times that we've gone, we've met a lot of people, and even those people, they have to be a little bit light sometimes because you can't just always be into.
The mental preservation.
It's a mental.
Well, yes, that's what you do. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
for how low you are, you have to be able to equalize it somehow. So
Well, and the thing about the sentencing was, it was almost like there was a little bit of a weight coming off the shoulders of everyone who's invested so much into this because she was found guilty. So for the first time, it really felt like there was a sense of justice and
accountability and
accountability. For some reason, in the back of my mind, I was like, what if she gets away with this? Like, there's so much evidence,
right.
but what if she gets away with it? So it's like the first time that you could go, oh, I remember one of Charles Vallow's brothers. He literally came out and talked to us, and he was like, ding dong, the witch is dead. Like she's getting her, something that might not even be what he said, but something to that effect. Like
That is what he said.
even their close family were lighthearted and celebratory that day because it's the first time it felt like there was justice for what was happening.
Well, and it's we've been following this for so long that we know all the details, and well, not all the details. We know a lot of the details. And so it's like, how could anybody, but if you're a juror and you've never heard it and you only get to hear bits and pieces of it, you can see where it'd be like, oh, I hope they showed enough to,
Yeah, I started to panic a little bit in Charles's trial because I'm like, there's so much that can't come in. Are they going to have enough to? Because we all know all of it.
Right. And I kept wondering, and you hear afterwards, you say, is the jury aware that her daughter is dead? That's why she's not testifying. And obviously they can't tell him, but you're like, oh, if you could just tell him that would make so much difference.
When that brings up another thing that just in the back of my brain where one of the jurors said, yeah, that was a question that we kept asking each other. Why is it Tylee here? And I'm like, why were you asking that question? You shouldn't have been talking to each other about it. I mean, I think it just was what.
While they were deliberating, though?
No, when before the trial was done, are we going to hear from Tylee? So really, they shouldn't have been. And
But how can you be like, really, how could you even be like in a jury room with everybody? And that's the only thing you know about each other. You don't have any.
And that juror, which is the juror that we keep talking about, he got admonished, according to Lori, because he was talking about the case before. So it was probably him saying, why aren't we hearing from Tylee? I don't know. And then the judge said, hey, don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Have either of you ever served on a jury before?
What's funny is I got summoned for jury for last week, and then I didn't go in. So no, I've never.
I just said I'm not going.
No.
It ended up I didn't need to go. Yeah.
Out of court.
I'm just joking.
I was summoned and chosen to be on the jury. I was up on the stand. We were getting ready for court, and then they came in and said they settled out of court, so I didn't have to do it.
Well, I'm kind of looking forward to it because I thought it would be fun, but also because
No.
the courthouse has a really yummy cafe. They have the best baked food there, like pies and cake.
Well,
I was like, I'll just go down and have lunch.
we were living in Savannah, and I just had a baby, and I got jury summons, and I go in, and I'm like, get to the point where I can say I have a newborn baby at home, but you don't get to that point for a while. So I sat in the courtroom for 4 hours probably as they were going through, counting down. And I remember looking at the suspect over there, and he scared me just to look at him. I was scared. And then somehow it was brought up if you agreed with the death penalty. So I realized this is a murder case.
Oh, wow.
I was like, oh, it was scary. I mean, it's not something that you would, most people would say, I want to be on that jury. I was like, please get me out of here. And because
Especially with a newborn.
They're
Like you have different feelings when you're a brand new mom too than other for protection.
Trial, there's no way I can do that. I've got 2 little ones at home. So I was excused, but I spent the day in there. So I got to see it. And I realized, oh man, as they would like, that person's gone. I don't know. It was interesting. And then another time I was on a jury duty, and I actually knew one of the police officers who was testifying anyway. So I got out of that one, but I was there all day on that one too. It's an interesting process, but much less on a high profile one where there's cameras everywhere and there's packed courtrooms. I mean,
To us, it's hard to imagine finding a juror that didn't know anything about this case.
Yeah.
Like, how do you not know anything?
But I ask people, just when I'm traveling through Idaho, I'll ask people, there's a lot of people that know nothing.
Especially now, it's been so many years, they forget about it, sort of.
Well, I mean, when we were growing up, you always watched the evening news. Like it would be on.
Yeah.
News or the 10 o'clock news or whatever, but who really watches that now?
Not many.
Not many.
You might see a headline here or there.
Yeah.
You want to hear my court, my only court experience really was that I got a ticket for inattentive driving. Yeah. Krista, you were with me, weren't you?
Right.
Inattentive driving the week I graduated from high school in American Falls. I think you were with me. I don't know. Maybe not.
I don't remember.
What's that?
I don't remember.
I don't know. We were usually together. But anyway, and it was a bogus, it was stupid. But anyway, so our mom went with me to go and talk to the judge to decide if
you walk the line and see if you were drunk and
stuff. Oh yeah, they did the whole thing because it was graduation. It was graduation night in American Falls, and so he was assuming that everybody was drunk. And I was like, I never drank, but it was cold. I was in heels. I was like shivering, and I'm like, oh man. But anyway, so we went into to talk to the judge, and we were allowed into his chambers to talk to him. And so mom was, because I'm shy and whatever, and she's like, so we're just trying to decide how bad is this look on a record if she pleads guilty, so we don't have to go to bring this to court, or if we plead not guilty, yada. And she's like, well, you can't explain the case to me unless, until you make a plea. But he's like, it's a catch-all. If you're eating while driving, they can pull you over and say it was inattentive driving. So it doesn't really look that bad on your record. And so we decided it wasn't worth me taking time off work and all of that to do it. And so he's like, so do you want to enter a plea? And I said, yes. And how do you plea? And I'm like, guilty, And so he said, okay, tell me what happened. So I told him, and he tore up the charges, threw it in the garbage. And he said, no, but okay, I will just say this. I was so terrified. It was just him, mom, me in that room. And I was so terrified because he's a judge. He has some control, he has power over you, whatever. And so he tore it up, and then he said, "And Polly, how the heck are you? Get over here and give me a hug." Mom didn't mention that they were friends they grew up together. Yeah,
I
I didn't need to
remember
be
that.
so intimidated. So Mom was not intimidated at all. She was just like, "Let's visit, buddy."
Practice walking a straight line in heels just in case we ever got pulled over.
It was so dumb. I was at a red light, the right light was red. It turned green. I started to proceed out. What's that? The one light, yes. There was one other car there coming towards me. I was making a left-hand turn, and they waited until the light turned red, and I'm in the middle of the intersection. And so I was like, I gotta go. And so I went. So then they peeled out, start honking and making it like they were the one in the wrong, and they pulled me over. So I was like, whatever.
Well, one time when I was in college, I was a witness at trial. So I got deposed, and that's a whole story, but I'm not going to tell it. But basically, I had to go in and be a witness, and I get up there, I get sworn in, and I'm just like maybe 19, 20 years old. I've never been in court, and the person who I was testifying against, like I was the witness for the prosecutor, I don't know what you call it, but she scared me a lot. So I was scared. So I get up there, say your name, and I'm like trying to say my name. My voice cracks. Then I start crying because I was too scared. I can't even imagine when you look at like that what was her name that went on a date with Charles Vallow,
Yeah,
and then she had to go be a
Oh.
witness.
Oh yeah,
I don't remember.
Anyway,
that's her, sweetheart.
she did great.
She did.
I think that now I'm older and I think I wouldn't cry, but I didn't think I would
When
cry
she's-
then. It's scary on the trail. Where she goes,
said,
don't flatter yourself, Lori.
Oh, I know, that was the best.
Oh.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
I think that's the thing is to remember these aren't actors.
Wow.
These are real people that are trying their best and going up against somebody who creates this narrative of fantasy land. And that's the only thing I can really call it. The whole thing that Lori creates even when you think about what she told Colby, that Tylee, I don't want to get demonetized, but like unalived JJ and then unalived yourself.
Oh.
Now she doesn't.
That was the most repulsive thing she's done yet.
Then she doesn't mention how did she get chopped up and buried. Then like
how did she die before?
Well, and it doesn't matter what happened to her body after because her spirit wasn't there as Lori's.
but, even if this was all true, which I don't believe any of it, but even if it was all true, wouldn't you still be sad that your own husband and children are gone? The only time Lori gets sad is when she doesn't get her way.
Yeah,
Otherwise, she can't find a streak of emotion for anyone.
yeah.
I honestly thought she would turn on Chad, though. I'm surprised by her sticking.
Oh, but she needs to be such a martyr, and she is so wonderful to still stick by his side through all of this, even if he throws her under the bus. What's another thing I wanted to talk about was Colby talking about how she fed them crap, and then ate salads herself so that she would make herself look so superior to them, even her own children, that she was, like he said, they just only ate junk food. And
I really think that everyone in her world is part of her play. How do you fit into my narrative? And it's part of the diagnosed narcissistic, what else did religiosity? I mean, psychopathy. The fact that she is still just praying and reading scriptures to inmates shows that she's still trying to do this con. She's trying to become the cult leader of Pocatello Penitentiary.
Yeah. I had another thought. What was it?
Sure, they're missing her there.
I'm sure they are.
It's in
She's
Arizona.
missing it. She likes that She likes the prison.
Well, and
Hawaii or Arizona.
I think that it's very, very possible that um Tylee's problems in her youth were caused by Lori, which the old thing would have been called Munchausen or whatever. But I really think she was hurting her, and so that she'd be sick. And then she turns around, I was there by her side when she was in pain every day of her life. Nobody knows but me. But oh yeah, that's because you caused the pain. I think, if nothing else, psychologically, she was hurting her.
Right when they first went missing, I went and started like stalking, I don't know what you call it, but I was researching about Tylee and I found her Instagram, and I think it's down now, but her Instagram was every post was about her mother and how wonderful her mother was. And I feel like there's like a weird psychology that happens with kids that are overly trying to get their moms to accept them. I mean,
Yeah,
think of people that have, like you've seen it, see it, where like if you have a wonderful mother, which we did, our mother,
we did.
but she was the best, and we didn't have to tell people, right?
Right. Right. People were telling us, I just love your mom. She's the sweetest.
We
You'd
know.
be like, yeah, I know.
It wasn't
It,
like
it almost got sickening how often we had to hear that about our parents, wasn't it? I know. They're perfect. They're so good.
that's one of the hard things, like that I've tried to comprehend, that I really was raised by good parents.
Very good.
So I can't comprehend what it's like to be Melanie, who had, I mean, according to the court documents, crazy mother, obviously crazy. She couldn't eat because
Yeah.
she thought food was
Swim
poison.
in a pool because there was germs.
I mean, obviously, and so she had that. Then, obviously, her aunt Lori, who then
her
seems like a mom, like
grandparents.
her grandparents, her aunt and uncle. Like, I think great aunt and uncle. She had a hard time. So I'm feeling
Compassion.
like, hey, Melanie, come do an interview with me, and I will be nice, and I want to hear your side of the story,
Yeah.
because I think that it's not been told.
Right. I agree. Yeah. And even, we have some family members that weren't raised with as kind of parents as us. And I just marvel at how they've turned out with the life that they were dealt, and I'm like, oh, we were so lucky. So we had such kind parents.
Come to Idaho, we'll slop some slough with the pigs, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
was it-
A lot
yeah,
of my cousins, their best memories were on the little farm we grew up on.
poor,
there's kids
but
and
happy as can be.
we grew up in the 70s, but we were like Little House on the Prairie.
We were.
All right, so the last thing I want to do 5 rapid fire questions
Okay.
just to get your opinion about what's coming up. So here's my first question. How might Lori Daybell's decision to represent herself impact the proceedings and the presentation of the defense in this case that's coming up about Brandon Boudreaux? Do you think that it'll be good that she's representing herself, or will it be chaos like the last one?
I think it's good in the fact that she's so bad at it that she's found to be found guilty.
And I'm wondering, this trial might be completely different because she might just go in and say, I don't know. You won't let me answer. You won't let me do anything, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see if because she's carried over this snarky attitude with the judge now.
Yeah.
And going to do that in front of the jurors, or will she do her Farrah Fawcett voice whenever the jurors come? Because, like I say, she can snap in and out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I could see it be very similar to the last one, or being really aggressive with the judge this time, or just kind of sitting back and going, well, what's the point? Everybody's against me, and you're against me. There's no way I can win. I'll just wait for a retry.
Well, and I think it's interesting that she said in one of her post interviews, she said something like, You look it up. You know how many people that are convicted actually,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's because there's enough evidence. You know that word?
They don't even,
Evidence against you. That's why they don't
they
even.
don't even bring it to trial unless they think they can convict.
She does not like that word evidence. She doesn't think it matters.
No.
She thinks gaslighting is evidence, but that's a sidetrack. Okay. Okay, here's question number 2. What challenges do prosecutors face in proving conspiracy to commit attempted murder when the attempted act itself was unsuccessful and the alleged co-conspirator, Alex Cox, is deceased? And I'll say a third thing, and the fact that Lori was for sure in Idaho when the attempt happened.
I don't think it's all that different from the last case, though, because the shooter is dead. All the things are still the same. The only difference is that he luckily didn't die, but this attempt was still made. I'm sure they have all the texts and everything else, putting it together, and
The digital footprint is there.
this time I'm sure they won't show the video of what's it called?
Storage shed?
The storage unit, because it's too grainy for them to use
Right.
in court. But
Did see an interview with Nate Eaton, and he's been in contact with the storage unit because they're the ones that contacted him initially, and he said they have not asked. The prosecutors have not asked for that footage.
yeah,
The police haven't, so it could come in, but it probably won't.
he said that the original was so grainy that it wouldn't be beneficial to the trial.
Yeah.
It would be helpful for the investigation, but not for the trial.
Yeah. Okay, third question. What kind of evidence is typically used to establish a conspiracy charge, especially when direct testimony from an alleged participant is unavailable? So you see how this is going to be tricky, because you don't have Alex because and you don't, who's going to be able to testify that it won't be hearsay? That's
Brandon.
Well, and that's what Lori's trying to say, that anything that Alex said or did is hearsay because he's not here. But they were able to use some of it in the last trial, so I'm sure they have some that they can use.
Yeah.
Which brings up another thing that just talking about Lori with her snarkiness with the judge when she's like, what am I going to say that doesn't open the door? Hey, that's on you. The judge does not have to give you information.
Right.
Like, you're being your own judge, or you're being your own attorney.
I
And
love
if
when
you
he's
don't
like,
know how that works, that's not my job to teach you.
the judge is like, you chose to represent yourself. I'm trying, how can I explain this to you? Because she doesn't understand the law. And he keeps having to tell her over and over.
I love when he's like, are you done?
Are you done?
Are you done?
Are you done?
How can I make you understand?
And then he's the next day, after what happened yesterday, I'll do written.
Yeah.
All of my, decisions will be written. We're not going to have this back.
And I love how she will not get over things that she's decided. So she keeps on saying that it was their recommendation that she not have to wear the belt. It was like, that was not the recommendation. That was the only other thing that they could do.
Oh, and I've been like, this is another one of I come up with all these ideas in the night. I'm like, I got to bring this up. And that is, she's a serial killer.
Right.
Why should she be able to be in a courtroom and go walking up towards a judge when she has killed her own kids? Like, of course you should be
Convicted
able to.
serial killer. Yeah.
Convicted. Like,
And she's saying there's already an armed guard. No, you need to have your own armed guard, maybe 2 or 3.
Yeah. And how do you know you're not going to jump across and try to do something? Because you got nothing to lose. You have no right to be innocent until proven guilty is beyond you, because
It's
you've
already
been
been
proven
proven.
guilty.
Yeah.
So you got to protect the court.
Yeah.
You got to protect the court.
And we know that we've seen her personality change so much that you just don't know what she's really capable of.
Could have been a little better, and that's good because it it shows that you care and you want it to be better, and maybe.
All right, let's try question number 4 in my rapid fire. How will the panel navigate the media attention and public perception surrounding Lori Vallow Daybell? And do you believe it will have an impact on the fairness of the trial? So how will the jurors navigate the media?
Well, I think that if they don't already know about it, I feel like the media has been respectful to leave them alone. And so I don't know that it's going to have any impact until after it's over and they're like, oh my heck, I didn't know.
One thing that's really crazy to me, that the Arizona courtroom is very different than Idaho. Idaho, when you go into the courtroom, you are nowhere near anybody else who's in the courtroom. Like the jurors, I never saw a juror, never outside of the courtroom, because they go in and out different doors. They don't eat lunch with you. They're all quarantined from the public. Well, apparently in Arizona, when you go to the cafeteria, the jurors are right there. The attorneys are there. People from the media, they're all kind of seeing each other in the hall, using the same restrooms. None of that was the case in Idaho. So I just wonder, it's an interesting thing that makes you go,
Yeah. So you think, oh, we live in the sticks in the back hills of Idaho, but apparently we got some things up on them.
things up on them
They
because
handled it well.
yeah, and I even found out that Lori was kind of manipulating even the people that were transporting her. Like she's flirting and whatever. So they literally put her in a wheelchair when they would bring her to court and make her face the wall so she couldn't interact. Have you noticed when she does interviews, this is a whole nother side note, she's always turning and looking like like whoever's looking at her, trying to get them to agree with her.
Like they're all
yeah.
They're all you my friends, and
she's so charismatic that they'll all just love her.
they'll all just love her. Well, the judge in Idaho didn't allow her to manipulate anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's a whole different ball game because of her being her own attorney, she has to be given a little bit more freedom, which is another reason why I think she wanted to be her own attorney. And then, I just have to go off on this, where she's like, well, I didn't ask for assistance. You assigned it to me.
Yeah. He's like, well,
When she wants another headset. And he's like, there's only 5.
and he's like, we can do away with those. Like,
you don't get them if
keep pushing me.
Yeah.
I won't have them either.
he's so patient with her.
He is.
I don't know how you get a more patient judge.
I know. And then she wants him to recuse himself because he's so impartial or partial towards her.
Because she claims he rolled his eyes. I'm like, are we all rolling our eyes? Every
We
time
are.
I'm like, oh, man.
Here we go again.
And another thing that I heard was that she would get mad at her attorneys in the last trial, different ones at different times. And so she just kind of cold shoulder, wouldn't look at one and just whisper to the other one and say, you are going to feel bad because I'm not talking to you. And,
Yeah.
like a grade school drama,
Yeah, and I was talking to someone who's from Idaho, and she didn't want to be named, but she had a court case with that same attorney. Her attorney was Lori's attorney, and she said he was wonderful. Okay, so question number 5 in our rapid fire. Could the previous convictions in Idaho and the Charles Vallow case influence the jury in the upcoming trial? Is it possible that the jurors really, truly, and I think it is, they don't have to 100% not know anything. They just have to, how do they word it? It just has to be kind of vague. They can't know details.
Well, they maybe have heard her name mentioned on the news, but didn't
really know what was
No, the
happening.
whole story.
So do you think she'll really be able to
But I feel like they were, from what it sounded like if they even had any knowledge of anybody's names that were on that they were not kept in the jury pool.
another thing when she's like, I don't want my name on it. Well,
Too bad.
Yeah, I love that. How do you expect us to try to vet these people if we can't tell them your name?
Mike King, you know him
Oh,
from
yeah.
Profiling Evil.
I love Mike King. I think
Oh, Mike King's
best.
he's
Yeah,
my
he's
man.
awesome. But he was saying something like, Lori Vallow's got a real moron for a
An attorney.
defense attorney talking about herself.
I mean, if you actually watch my videos, I did that too. It was
You did that.
Lincoln who says, "He who represents himself has a fool for an attorney."
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
for sure. I love when he gets all dumb, making fun of
Yeah.
people because he doesn't. He's such a kind person.
He is such a kind person. We like Mike King because he reminds us of our dad. So we really like him.
So much. Yes, he's such a nice
Okay,
guy.
did I do number 5?
I don't think so.
We're going to have a bonus one if not. What unique challenges does the Arizona legal system face in prosecuting a case that has such strong ties to events and individuals in other states?
Because they're linked to that other case for one thing, but also just the travel and trying to get the witnesses there on the right day. If they think it's going to be on Tuesday and they get done and it's supposed to be on Monday, they're not here. You can't go forward.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Okay, I have one last question. I know I said 5, but I have one last question. We really have not heard much from Brandon Boudreaux since all of this.
Right.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see what he has to say, because he is alive and he was involved in all of the, like Adam talked about how he could tell that Lori was going off base. She was far from the teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. In fact, he was trying to get her excommunicated, or at least her temple recommend taken away, because her beliefs were so far off. Certainly Brandon knew that too. He knew that.
And I was listening to Colby this last week, and he said, I feel so bad for Brandon because he's the one that identified JJ. He's the one, he's had so much at play here, and he's had to deal with some really dark things, and I feel for him.
Yeah, and I mean, just based on what Kay and Larry have said over the years, Wilcox, which is Charles's sister and her husband, Brandon's like a part of their family now. So
Yeah.
obviously Brandon, like, he's not drinking the Lori Kool-Aid. Let's just say
No.
he's not falling for it.
And Colby said he's just been the best uncle ever. That, got down on the floor and played with the nieces and nephews, and they're the in-laws, but he was just a really good uncle, and I just think he sounds like a really well, and Charles did too. They both sounded like such nice men that it's like, oh, it's just
And you can
such
see
a
why
shame.
Brandon and Charles would have been such good friends, because they both appear to be really good people.
Yeah.
But they
So
didn't.
definitely
Kool-Aid.
when you're counting the victims, Kay and Larry, Brandon and
Colby
I just lost Colby.
and Charles. What do you think?
Well, yeah, but I mean the ones that didn't get
Yeah.
that are still alive, that are the
What do you
living
think?
victims.
Well, and Adam even thought his life was in danger, and I think it probably was. Because anybody who
Oh, and even that, can you imagine being Adam and being like, my family's crazy.
yeah. And I still say, where's the apology from his sister, from his parents? Like, Lori,
Yeah.
all these things, and you told her that. Anyway, that's a whole other issue. Okay, last and final question is still going back to Melanie, the niece, Melanice. Do you think that she's sorry?
I wonder if maybe she is, and that's why she's silent. Because otherwise, I think she would still be out there talking.
She is too. I think that's why she's just given up on religion altogether, because she's like, it failed me big time. My family failed me. Everybody failed me. So she's distancing herself from everything.
Who would you trust if you were her?
Yeah.
No one.
I would be looking at Adam and Uncle Greg's. What does he call himself? Uncle Rex. Grunk. Grunkle,
Oh, yeah.
but anyway, I'd be leaning towards those two because they seem to be the ones that are level-headed, but it doesn't sound like they have a relationship.
Yeah.
It's sad. I mean, the whole thing is so sad. I'm so glad that Larry and Kay got their day in court for Charles.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, it would be really sad to lose a sibling that died or something, but it would be just equally sad if somebody tried to break us up, you know,
Yeah,
and ruin our friendship towards each other. So
yeah.
that, you know, the friendships that were lost because, you know, because of it too.
I'd be very afraid to have my kids, if I'm Brandon, with Melanie.
Well, and the fact that she has partial custody makes me think that she must have, otherwise he'd still be fighting for it. That makes me think that she must,
Yeah, I think that we don't know the whole story there.
right.
That's why I feel like I have it in my heart and my mind, and I didn't think I would ever say that, but I do feel compassion towards her and feel like she's got a story that hasn't been told yet.
Yeah, I think she's another victim that, you know, really, that was manipulated by another victim.
I personally don't feel that about Lori at all.
No.
I have a feeling that she's been manipulating people her whole life. And I know that a lot of people say, no, this didn't happen till later, but I feel like she probably had that quality in her world. She scared me. I'm just going to tell you. I mean, who am I? I'm just a person in the courtroom, but when she looked at me, I was like, oh no, he's seen me. Did I cross her in any way?
I'm on the blacklist.
I think people, I don't know. I'm a scaredy cat.
Do you ever notice that sometimes you can just sense evilness though? You know, there's just some people they just exude joy and happiness, and other people you just are like, I wouldn't trust them. And it's so, for me, it's like, of course I know her after the fact, or I mean, I don't even know her after the fact, but you know, hearing about her after the fact, but think, how did people trust her when, to me, all I can see is evil?
For some reason, I think that criminals who are pretty get away with more than
Right.
criminals that look like the.
Just like Ted Bundy too. I mean, he was handsome and charismatic.
Oh, yeah.
People just trusted him.
Yeah, and I've heard about all of the that Lori gets all this mail. She gets fan mail and all this stuff in jail, and people they're buying, you know, sending her money and doing whatever. And I'm like, what? What? But they did the same for Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
I knew people that wanted to go out and protest and getting
Right.
executed, and I don't think it was just because they were against execution. I think it's because they thought he was handsome.
Well, I bet there's not a lot of people knocking down the prison in Pocatello once she ends up back there for the rest of her life.
No, there's too many people in Idaho that really follow the case that are like, "Ooh, she needs to rot there forever." So.
Yeah, and I'm always astounded to think, like, she lived in Idaho for what, 3 months
Not even that.
before she started.
Yeah, and we have to claim her as what, you know, it's an Idaho case.
Yeah.
Well, that's just like Koberger didn't even live in Idaho.
Yes.
They-
Thanks a lot for tainting our name.
well, all I can say is people who choose to murder in Idaho pick the wrong state because there's no insanity plans, and people do not let it go.
And we have the death penalty.
Yeah.
Koberger, that's a whole nother story. Well, I think that we probably wrapped it. We will go ahead and we'll have it. Okay, this is what I want. If you're interested in the sisters' point of views on things, let me know in the comments because I gotta butter them up to get them to come on. Well,
Yeah, you're gonna have to mail me some of your enchiladas.
I'm gonna mail you some enchiladas. We gotta get cooking. All right, and tomorrow, if everything goes well, I'll have a live tomorrow night and give you the inside scoop of what's happening in the courtroom and if Lori Vallow shows any sign of sickness. That's the question of the hour.
Yeah, it would be interesting if
We better keep them-
you know, I wish you could go talk to the jailers.
Go talk to the jailers. I
Go
just,
talk to the jailers. How is she sick?
she's a con artist, and I think it's a con.
Yeah, I do too.
Maybe she legitimately is something, we'll find out. But to be continued, thank you so much. And I will see you all again soon. See ya.